this week will present to most Americans, and especially African Americans, a time that will have its own place in the history of this nation. Never in our lifetime has there been a conjunction of dreams and hopes as will present itself in the next 48 hours. In the opposite direction of the mall in Washington, D.C., where Martin Luther King Jr., our national leader for civil rights, stood and delivered the infamous "I Have a Dream" speech. In the shadows of that monument, Barack Hussein Obama will be sworn in as the 44th President of the United States of America. And he goes in under his national campaign slogan of hope. In March 1963, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., whose birthday we also celebrate this weekend, stood before a crowd of more than 500,000 people, people of every race in America, male and female, rich and poor, educated and not so educated, Protestants, Catholics, Jews, and even atheists. He began his speech declaring what he called the urgency of now. Now, 45 years later, President Barack Hussein Obama, standing before more than 2 million people and with millions more watching on television screens around the world, will be sworn in as President of the United States of America. I don't believe that it's coincidental that both the dreams of Dr. King and the hope of Barack Obama are converging this week. God does not operate in the realm of incidental occurrences because he is omniscient and he's not influenced by political maneuverings. He's not influenced by economic collapses. He's not influenced by the rumors or the actuality of wars. So whatever takes place in the lives of God's people is already part of a divine order, and it's not in sync with the designs of men. God has a way of taking you out of your modus operandi and taking you out of the way you do things and causing you to be what he would have you to be, whether you like it or not. God has a word for you. God has a plan for you. God has purpose for you. God has destiny for you. If it were left to the critics of Obama who said that he was naive, that he was whimsical, that his words were unfounded, this inauguration would never take place. If Dr. King had listened to those who criticize him as moving too fast, buses would still be segregated. The instructions that God gave Joshua sounded like this. It sounded like a deferred dream. They were already in eyesight of Jericho. Everyone knew that Jericho was there. They knew that wealth was there. They knew it was a great country to be in. They had the promise of a covenant with God that this was their land to conquer. But the instructions that God gave him were these. Walk around the city walls 7 times. Blow a trumpet blast with the ram's horn. And shout when I give you the signal. Now, if that doesn't sound stupid, when you're getting ready to conquer a nation, again, here's what it said. Walk around the walls of the city 7 times. Blow a trumpet blast with the ram's horn 1 time. And everybody who did the walking and everybody who heard the sound of the trumpet's horn, on the signal, everybody shout. Let me give you these 3 points and we'll go home. Number 1, a revelation from God may appear ridiculous to men. When God reveals something to you and you're operating in the flesh, it may appear ridiculous. Walking, blowing a trumpet, shouting, doesn't seem to be necessary ingredients for conquering a nation. Why was it necessary to have demonstrations? Why did we have to have freedom riders? Why did we have to have sit-ins and boycotts and nonviolent protests? And there were folk who looked at that and said, that's ridiculous. That's no way. And the revelation that God gave Dr. King was a revelation that a lot of folk did not buy into and struggle against it all the way to the end. Number 2, God has an appointed time to turn your dreams into hopeful expectation. Let me give it to you again. God has an appointed time to turn your dreams into hopeful expectation. Finally, this is what you want to get. What you receive from God is not based upon your power or your might, but upon your obedience to God with that expectation. If God says do it, it may sound stupid to you to do it, but if you know that it's the voice of God saying do it, do it. Don't worry about what folk gonna say looking at you, how they're gonna laugh at you. All right, who's saying? Man came here, they say, I'm leaving the church. I can't stand it no longer. I can't stand it. I'm trying to tell them what to do right. They won't listen. In fact, they keep laughing at me. I said, are you right? Yes, I'm right. Then let them laugh. Because right always wins out. Right will always win out. You need to remain obedient to God and to what God has said. The night before Dr. King's death, he crowded into the Church of God in Christ headquarters in Memphis. And he said to you and to us, I've been to the mountaintop. I've seen the promised land. And what he was saying was, God has already shown me where he's taking this nation and where he's taking our people. Obama has said, God has endued with me a sense of change, and I have hope for that change. Some people might not want to support you because of what God has told you, because you're walking in his footsteps, in the steps that he has guided for you. But early on, you will receive your marching orders to shout. The good part I like about this lesson is that when they walked around that 7th time and the trumpet blew, everybody shouted. Somebody missed that. You need to shout. If you're just in the crowd, you ought to shout.